Defend yourself against DDoS attacks by hiding your true IP address with ExpressVPN, and visit my custom link expressvpn.com/ghilliemaster in the description to find out how you can get an extra 3 months free. Hey everyone, and welcome to my in-depth ray tracing comparison for the GTA 5 Enhanced Edition on PC. In this video, I will be directly comparing side by side the new version of the game with ray tracing to the new version without ray tracing. And through the power of the Rockstar editor, this allows me to get the exact same clip frame by frame with and without ray tracing for a very easy comparison. But before we begin, let's first go over the new types of ray tracing that they added here. The Xbox Series X and PS5 versions already saw ray traced reflections with the fidelity mode as well as ray traced sun shadows. The new ones that are exclusive to the PC Enhanced Edition are ray traced global illumination and ray traced ambient occlusion, both of which we'll be taking a very good look at today. A lot of people like to say they can't really see a difference at all. Well, this video might just change your mind on that because there definitely is a difference. In fact, I would say RTAO and RTGI are two ray tracing techniques that you will notice more than anything aside from maybe ray trace reflections. Now, the rig I'm using to record and test here is an i9-9900K CPU with an RTX 3080 Ti graphics card and 64 gigs of RAM on an SSD. I know my CPU is getting pretty old these days, but it still can keep up with this game at least, even if it is limited in some scenarios. Starting off with the official in-game benchmark though, with everything maxed out with ultra ray tracing on the left, and everything maxed out with ray tracing turned off on the right, both at 1440p with DLSS set to quality. You'll notice right away there is a pretty big performance hit when running ray tracing, as you would expect. Whereas with no ray tracing at all, the game runs almost locked to its 120 FPS across the board. Rockstar have hard-coded the game to cap out at 120 FPS this time, but I have heard you can change that by editing the launch parameters somehow. Although I wouldn't exactly suggest doing that, as the previous version of the game was known to stutter badly when running at very high refresh rates, and I'm not sure if this new one would do that as well. In any case, if you do plan on using ray tracing, unless you have a top-of-the-line system, you likely won't be even hitting 120 FPS consistently anyway, so that FPS cap doesn't make a difference either way. Towards the end of the test, I do drop below 60 FPS for a short time in the busy streets of Vinewood Boulevard, but a majority of the time, I'm sitting well over 60 FPS with maxed out ray tracing, so I'd say that's pretty playable. And now getting into some direct comparisons, let's start out with a great showcase of the new RTGI. Look at how the light naturally bounces off the wall, allowing it to give it a very good looking shine as well as just amplify the wall texture, whereas the non-RT image looks very flat in comparison. And this is one word you're going to hear me say a lot in this video, natural, because that's the idea of ray trace lighting, to make it look as if it would in real life. Next, how about a visit to Michael's house? Here the change is most obvious on the garage wall. The little bit of sunlight hitting the wall gives it a slight yellowish glow, whereas the scene on the right doesn't have that effect at all. Inside of Michael's house, we can see the ray-traced ambient occlusion going to work. Under the dining room table with ray tracing on, the blocked light from the table shows a much darker shadowing underneath it, whereas the non-ray traced image is only somewhat dark. It's especially noticeable on the very bottom of the table where most of the light is blocked. Another area in the scene I want to hone in on is the burger shot bag here. Notice that very good looking soft shadow formed on the wall. That is due to the RT ambient occlusion. Without it, the light bleeds all the way through it behind it, and it looks pretty bad in comparison. Entering this parking garage in the Banshee, we again see a very nice looking image with the sunlight bouncing off the inside of the structure, causing the entire area to have a nice glow to it from the ceiling to the railings, just giving it a realistic, nice, warm tone. Whereas the image on the right obviously has none of that, it's just complete darkness pretty much. The mine shaft is another good area to test lighting because it's really just one dark hallway with a light at the end of the tunnel. And with ray tracing, that little amount of light makes its way through the tunnel and illuminates it just a little compared to the pitch dark fall off of the non-ray traced scene here. The best way to show off ray trace reflections is of course at night in the rain, and although they aren't new, we saw these reflections on the Series X and PS5, they still do look nice, especially the car reflections as you can see on the ray traced image in this scene. Building reflections also look a lot better, as you can imagine. You can see your own helicopter reflected on the building, as well as a more accurate reflection of the buildings you would actually see mirrored in this situation. And now that brings us to what I think is the best looking scene in the video, the sunset walk at the observatory. Look at this exact moment right here. Zooming in, we can see all forms of ray tracing working together to create a gorgeous looking scene here. The global illumination creates that warm sunset orange color as it bounces off the table and chairs. The ambient occlusion is also creating that slight shadow underneath the table to make it look more realistic. And it's all being reflected on the glass railing behind it all due to the ray trace reflections. This scene in particular is a night and day difference between the two. It does look a million times better with ray tracing turned on. If you go back to the old non-ray traced image, it just looks terrible in comparison. In the end, the graphical differences are quite noticeable. However, for online play, if you are someone that cares about the frame rate, it probably isn't worth that performance dip because it is quite a big performance dip. Talking about going from 100 plus FPS consistently to like 70 FPS. That's a pretty big hit in performance. But everyone also has different setups and your mileage may vary. If you have like a 40 series card, for instance, or a 50 series, you probably would be fine just running ray tracing cranked up. Plus my CPU is about 7 years old now, so that's probably having something to do with it as well. But for strictly single player purposes, I definitely want to play through the game one more time with everything cranked up to the max because it just looks great. It really does. And for single player, as long as I'm getting 60 FPS, I think I'm pretty much happy with that. One thing is for certain though, the PC version is once again the best looking version of the game, and there's really no doubt about that. I hope you guys found this graphics comparison helpful. If you did, feel free to leave a like as well as subscribe to my channel for more GTA Online content. I also want to give a huge shout out to all of my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.